really needed quite a lot of attention from me. And so I was trying to look after them and homeschool and still do lots of business things, and it just wasn't working. So I decided to take a step back from business and just really focus on being with my kids and looking after them. And obviously I appreciate that I'm in an extremely privileged position to be able to kind of take that step back, and my husband was still working full time, so I was more in charge of being with the kids and looking after them. And so that was, you know, once we got into a rhythm, that was all fine. And so I kept like sending out orders and that sort of thing, but I wasn't in any way promoting or marketing my business. And then in August, once the kids went back to school, I found I had just a really renewed passion to be able to try and drive my business forward again. And timing wise, that actually worked out quite well for me, because obviously in a product based business, the run up to Christmas is the main time when I get most of my sales. So I was able to kind of focus on that again and do a bit more marketing and try some new things, like finally actually started an email list, and just did a bit more on my social media, and just really tried to push it forward again. And it's been really good. I've had a really great run up to Christmas, had lots of orders, so I'm really happy with where I've actually ended up at the end of the year. So it's actually really nice to be able to look back and think it didn't necessarily start out how any of us thought it would. But yeah, I'm loving it. I love books. I love what I do, and I'm just really glad to have been able to get back to it and for that to have been possible. Yeah.
That's great. I think you've made a few really good points there. I think a lot of people did have that situation where they were like, okay, I'm a full-time parent now, when you're used to your children being in nursery or school, and how do you balance that with a business? Where do you fit your priorities in? And you know, going through that experience, I think, has made a lot of people rethink the whole work-life balance and what they want their life to look like as well.
Right.
I love that you said too that that you know, you're so happy with where you ended up. Like, the process of getting here was not at all what you planned, and you had to figure it out as you went. But you still ended up in a place that you're really happy with.
Definitely. Yeah, it really brought it into focus for me. I think that I do want to be doing this, and that I really enjoy it, and I want to make it work and grow my business. Yeah, so it's been a good end to the year.
That's so good. And I love that it's sort of, don't know what the right word is here, sort of almost consolidated your belief in, like, this is what you should be doing. Because I think people kind of went one way or the other. They realized either they weren't happy with what they were doing or the way they were doing it, or they realized, actually, this is exactly where I need to be. So that's so positive. I love it. A great week.
Yeah, it's been good. Yeah, it's been good in the end.
As much as it is great that things have ended on a positive note for so many of us, I think it's no secret that you know, there were some bumpy patches along the way, and it took a lot of patience to get to a point where we were feeling positive. And my next guest has some great insight on that. So up next, I'm speaking to Laura. Laura is a life coach and does Reiki therapy as well. And Laura's definitely had a lot of big changes with her business in 2020. And she says that patience was the key to ending off the year on a positive note.
If you had sort of one take home or one lesson you've learned over the year, what would yours be?
Okay, it would have to be patience. And in the midst of all this emotional meltdown that I had at the very beginning, when I genuinely felt my whole world had crashed down on top of me, a friend said to me, who's also a life coach, but all roads lead to Rome. And initially I was a bit infuriated when she said that, because, you know, we like to go into victim mode. No, but you don't understand my situation. My situation is really bad. But it wasn't until afterwards, and I took time to reflect on that and what did that statement really mean, it meant that there was no reason as to why my business still couldn't work. It just meant I would have to take a different approach. And that's exactly what I've done. Through patience, I've taken a different approach and I've learned to be more creative. And I think the majority of small business owners have done the exact same, including yourself.
No, that is such a good one. And I think that's one of the things that I found the most inspiring every time, where I kind of felt that I was the same. See, at the beginning, I was like, I've worked so hard to build up this business. And this was the first year that I had like enough stuff booked in that I was feeling like, this is great. It's going to be a great year for me. I felt like I had just kind of got to where I wanted to be. And this happened. And you're right, it did feel like everything was crashing down around us. But seeing other people adapt, you know, people like yourself that went way more online. And my PT is like that. She was obviously training people in person and was like, no, we're going to make this work, and went on Zoom and created a whole community. And like, people have done such amazing things and actually managed to connect their clients and their customers way better than they had maybe even before the pandemic. And it totally inspired me every time I was feeling sorry for myself, or feeling a bit down, or feeling like this isn't fair. And then I would look and think like, no, everybody else is finding a way to do it. I have to find my own way too. So I totally agree. That is a great, that's great perspective.
Yeah. But I think by being honest and by sharing your experiences, what you've done is you've really highlighted your brand, and you've connected with certain people, and you've kind of drawn them in. And you've definitely done that with me, because I'm like, right, I know that I need new photographs done for the business. I think what attracted me to you and why I would want you to work with me is purely because of the inspiration that you've been putting on your posts, and the fact that you've been brave enough to share your experiences. It's been quite raw at times. You've just been really open and really honest, which takes a hell of a lot of bravery. So
you made my day with that. Thank you. But you know, it's the same. I think I've connected with people in a different way because I'm a total extrovert. I put myself through uni bartending, and then I always stuck with it because I loved it. So I worked in hospitality for 12 or 13 years, and my favorite part of the job was just meeting different people and chatting and hearing their story and getting energy off them. So when this whole pandemic happened, I was like, this is going to be weird. I'm not going to be able to connect with people. But actually, by being open and honest myself, I've connected with so many other people, whether it's sort of a bit more publicly, you know, on the actual posts, or through DMs, or people like yourself who I feel like we always chat back and forth. And, you know, similarly to the content you post, you're really encouraging people to look inside and delve deeper and just go for it and face fears. And I don't know, there's certain people that are just, they speak to you and you feel quite connected with them, even though you've never met them face to face, or you've met them maybe for a few minutes here at a networking event like you and I have. So yeah, right back at you. I think so saving grace during this time.
Well, after those very kind words from Laura, I thought we would stick with the theme of the importance of, I guess, mindset and finding like-minded people online and positive experiences online. So next up, I'm talking to Jess at Rock Social. Jess is a social media expert, and she comes from a PR and marketing background, and she shares her insight of how mindset has been everything to her in getting through this lockdown and her first year in business.
Hi, Jess. So thanks so much for joining today.
Thank you.
So how has 2020 been for you? Tell us a little bit about how you are feeling as we near the end of the year.
How has it been for anybody? It's been an annus horribilis, hasn't it? It's something out of the record book for sure. I'm a new business owner, and I'm in my first year still, just finished my first year. And so this year has taught me a lot of things, obviously, when you're doing things for the first time. I think some of the greatest lessons that I learned do go back to one thing, and that is how important mindset is when you run a business. So all the knockbacks and all the experiences that are you doing for the first time, the resilience that you gain is really all for me connected to mindset. So I don't think I understood when I started my business how important a mindset is and how it would affect pretty much everything that I do. It's been from everything from understanding that to be able to have resilience to get up after knockbacks. You have to experience that to be able to get there. You can't get there otherwise. You can't gain resilience without the negative experiences. And also very much being comfortable with being uncomfortable. That is also very much a mindset exercise especially when you're developing your business and you're pushing it forwards and you're pushing your boundaries and you're going into spaces, maybe being more visible, whatever it may be, showing up. You have to understand that, or at least for me, it was a big lesson this year, that moving forward, taking big leaps is about being in that uncomfortable zone of change. And that's where the real stuff happens.
That is such a good one. And I think everybody can relate to that this year, because we really have all had to take a step back and just kind of go with the flow. And you're right, it is quite uncomfortable, but that is the only place where growth occurs. It's kind of like, I don't know what the right kind of word here is, because I don't want to say negative, but it's almost like you have to go through the tough stuff to get the knowledge. It's not one of those things that, it's kind of like learning things for yourself, I guess. You can read a book that tells you should have this perspective, but you kind of need to put things into play yourself to really get it to happen. So that's a great one. I love it.
I really think that you do. And I think that I know there's a lot of people on social media and they're talking about this horrible year and, you know, how awful it's been and all of that. But it's easy to do that. It's easy to go to that place. But I always try to reframe things for myself. So when you lose a client, it's an opportunity to understand what you can take away from that situation. And it opens up a space for other clients as well. So it's about like taking a situation and reframing it. And I mean, this year has just had, so if you look at the bigger picture, you know, it's about people being ill and losing their lives and all of those things, which are huge. But I still believe that for my own sanity, I need to take away the good things and remember those and focus on those, because otherwise it just gets too difficult, too negative, too hard. So that's the thing I do as well.
Well, that's great perspective, but I'm kind of curious because I don't think that mindset is an easy thing to wrap your head around. So I totally get what you're saying, and it sounds like you've come out of this with a great perspective, but how did something happen to sort of help you adopt that mindset, or how did it come about? Was it a very conscious thing? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I was, my background is in PR and comms, and I started my career in film and television, and for big brands like Disney and Discovery. But before I started my business, I was employed for 7 years, a big global company with a highly toxic culture, and very male-oriented. And I was in a situation with a manager who had sociopathic tendencies, who would throw me under the bus on a regular basis. And it was just basically a horrible situation. And I stuck it out for 7 years. But it did break me down. So what I had to do is I had to build myself back up again. And I think that building process, which took a long time, took years to do that, has stood me in good stead. Now running my own business, it's almost like it was meant to be. I'm a little bit like that. You take away, you know, that was bad, but what did I gain from it? If it had been just a little bit bad, I probably wouldn't have been here now. But because it was so bad, I then chose to say, you know what, this is enough. No more. I'm not taking this. And from then on, I did a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy, to be honest. And that's a lot about reframing things and about building myself up. And that, I think, has stood me in good stead, you know, running my own business. I can go back to that all the time.
No,
and which is probably why I have the perspective that I have as well.
Yeah, and I think that's such a powerful thing, because I think when it comes to stuff like that, a lot of people think that only helps you in your personal life, but so much of the, I guess, limitations that we put on ourselves then